time with a warning bell at 4 minutes. Before we start, I might just say, given the coronavirus, the public forum session is being reviewed and is likely to be cancelled in the future due to health concerns. An ongoing review will occur. Council meetings will occur as needed. Community can access the meetings as they are live streamed. And Council will continue to review its operations having regard to federal and state government directives and guidelines. So you have the opportunity to speak tonight. What holds up at the next meeting, well, you can always call Council or myself or send a letter in and they will be answered. So I'll give someone the opportunity to be the first here tonight to speak. Yes, Mr. Solis?
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to notify all in attendance. This council meeting is being recorded in accordance with council's webcasting of council meetings policy. The recording will be archived and made available for viewing at any time on council's YouTube channel for a maximum period of 12 months. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, if you are in attendance in the public gallery, you should be aware that your presence may be recorded. Your continued attendance means that you agree to being recorded and also that you will abide by the council's adopted code of meeting practice. The chairperson or general manager have the discretion to interrupt the recording of any meeting at any time should it be deemed necessary. This may occur in circumstances where commentary is considered to be misleading, defamatory or inappropriate to be published, or where behaviour breaches council's adopted code of meeting practice.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. We'll go into the acknowledgement of country and the prayer now. Could I have all those who are able to please stand for the prayer and the acknowledgement? Please do. Almighty God, give wisdom to those in authority and guide all peoples in the way of righteousness and peace, so that we may share with the justice the resources of the earth, work together in trust and seek the common good. Amen. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people and recognise the strength, resilience and capacity of Aboriginal people in this land. Thank you very much. General Manager, is there any apologies?
Mr Mayor, there are no apologies.
I have a movement. Move Councillor North, Councillor Christians. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 5, the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Bathurst Regional Council, 19th of February 2020. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Orban. Councillor Jennings. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Declaration of interest. General Manager, do we have any?
Mr Mayor, I have 2 declarations of interest, one by Councillor Fry in the Director of Engineering Services report number 1 and one from Councillor North in the same report.
Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Rudge, Councillor North. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 8, receive and deal with General Managers and Directors report. Director of Environmental and Planning and Building Services report. Item number 1, section 4.15 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, 1979. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Rudge, Councillor Morse. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 2, the general report. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Jennings, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? Councillor, I put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 3, footpath dining. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor North and Councillor Christians. Yes, General Manager would like...
Councillor North, if I could just ask, and Councillor Christian, if you'd be willing to alter the amendment. We've had further contact from New South Wales Health requesting that the language be strengthened in the policy to reflect the requirements of a Smoke-Free Environment Act, and essentially just change the wording that is in the draft of recommended to required. So could I suggest that the recommendation would be that Council amend clause 7.6.2 to read Council of the draft footpath restaurant policy. Council requires that venues include no smoking signage in the approved dining area in accordance with the Smoke-Free Environment Act 2000. B, adopt the amended footpath restaurant policy, and C, notify the premises and businesses conducting footpath dining and provide a copy of the amended policy.
Are you happy with that? Move it. Any discussion? Councillor North?
Just want to ask you a question. There's a clause here, and it's top of page 14. It talks about preparing food and drink on the footpath. I notice at times when we have festivals or events in Bathurst that some coffee shops will prepare coffee out in the street. Is that a separate permit allowed at the time? Because it says here that food preparation must be undertaken in accordance with the Act, and it's talking about not permitting So is that a separate permit on special occasions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might seek advice from my colleague, but my understanding of that is that food preparation is defined. That doesn't necessarily prohibit the dispensing of pre-prepared or packaged food, but I might ask for extra advice on that.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, we are aware that some businesses have prepared items like coffee in the past during events like the Winter Festival. It's fair to say that has been done outside of the policy, but it is something in the spirit of the festival being allowed to take place as a relatively low-risk activity. I think it would be appropriate, given the wording that has been strengthened in the policy, that if businesses would like to undertake that works, that it's done in accordance with the requirements of the Food Act and the Food Standards Code.
Can I have clarification then? So is it a separate request put in to the time, the availability to do it, or is this going to be a simple case of no, they can no longer do it? It says food and drink, so it seems fairly clear to me. It's saying definitely no. So are we going to prepare a form to allow it to happen on a temporary basis?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there will need to be a process that will have to be followed. I think the underlying principle is that it needs to be in compliance with the appropriate legislation. So that doesn't automatically mean a prohibition, but it does need to be regulated. So
can the councillors have a information provided back to us how this is going to operate in the future? Because this is a city that we pride ourselves on holding a lot of events, and credit to the businesses. But if we send a footpath dining policy in place, we need to support our principles and our policy. So could we have clarification moving forward how we're going to deal with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly. I think one of the important points that was mentioned in the discussion is the level of risk. And so there will be some activities which can be accommodated without too much of a problem, the low risk end of the spectrum. But when you move to the preparation of meat and other products, for example, that would be a bit of a challenge.
Any other discussions, Councillor Morse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, because I'd like some clarification if I could. Is it the policy to have the diners on the curbside or by the building side? I can't really quite make this first one. I don't understand it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the table which is included in the report is our response, council staff response to the submissions. So the policy itself is in the attachments, of course. The intention is that for probably the vast majority of situations, the recommendation would be to have the dining against the premises wall, not against the curb. That's in large part because with angle parking on the roadside, the risk of vehicles reversing into the dining area is real and would prevent a significant strip of that edge of the footpath not able to be used because of that risk. It's not necessarily the perfect situation, but it's largely driven because of that parking situation in the majority of the CBD area of Bathurst. What's proposed in the further amendment to the policy is, if it can be justified, we're prepared to consider exceptions to that rule on merit.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make a comment on that. There is one example that I can think of where the tables are on the curbside, which narrows the footpath quite considerably, with staff carrying hot things in and out across this footpath. It also creates, if you get 3 people around a table, a very narrow pedestrian area. I'm just wondering, is that going to be subjected to this new rule and get them to move back to the facade of the building? It's there is another problem in the sense that quite a lot of the customers take their dogs there, who some are good and some are not good. And it also happens to be right outside a pet shop. So we have quite a lot of dog fights there, which is, it's not, not the best place to have dogs, diners, coffee, pet shop. And I would like that question raised because I don't know the answer to that one. But to see that it's going to be still with the tables at the curbside, narrowing the pedestrian pathway, which is also complicated by, I better not say it because some people here would not like it with bike riders and their bikes. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think I know the premises in question, Councillor Morse. Indeed, myself and Manager Environment have inspected that premises specifically. It's one of the reasons there was a slight delay in getting this report back to you to ground truth particular cases. We have consulted with the manager of those premises, and the expectation is that there will be a 2 metre clear passage for pedestrians, as there should be for all premises.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Orban?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on, as you just brought up, Mr. Director, the reverse angle parking into areas where there's footpath dining. I have a slight problem with this in the fact that I know a family that had a child actually run over by a car in William Street backing over the footpath. And I've seen a car inside Matthew's Pharmacy at one stage as well, backed up over the curb. Is there any provision in this to put bollards on the edge of the footpath adjacent to dining areas, footpath dining areas?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, there isn't, Councillor Orban, but I am aware of occasional, rare occasions, not that I'm aware in Bathurst, where drivers have mounted curbs and so on. I guess that is a risk, but in the context of Bathurst and the importance of restaurant dining to the CBD, we're prepared to recommend what we have.
Any other discussions? Councillor Orban?
Yeah, thanks. Just following up on that, I would like to see something put in place with new areas that are proposed for footpath dining, and I get what you mean about the importance of it to the CBD, but I'd still like to see some sort of policy brought in that you know, bollards are in place for safety of customers dining at these places, because I just have a horrible feeling it's only got to happen once. And the other thing is, put the smoke-free signs up when there's car exhaust coming back into them. Seems a little bit ridiculous to me, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Any other discussion? Councillors, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Item number 4, Bathurst Region Heritage Reference Group. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rudge, Councillor Hanger. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Now go to the Director of Corporate Services and Finance report. Statement of investments. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor North, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 2, the monthly review 2019-2023 delivery plan and operational plan 2019-2020. Please have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Jennings, Councillor Rudge. Any discussion? There's no discussion. Can I put the motion? Those in favour? Carried. Item number 3, sundry section 356 donations, Bathurst Memorial Entertainment Centre community use subsidy and Mount Panorama fee subsidy. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Morse, Councillor Fry. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Morse.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank the Director of Corporate Services for the little asterisks, which have made it very clear, not only to councillors, but to the public, that in fact, although it looks as though we got 4,621, in fact, it's a good explanation. We haven't had that before, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Any other discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 4, power of attorney. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Orban, Councillor Fry. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 5, request for financial assistance 2020 tractor fund. Move Councillor North, Councillor Orban.
Can I move a separate recommendation that council provide financial assistance, and based in the financial implications, can I have a funding that we have available in the ground maintenance budget?
You happy, Councillor Rush? Any discussion? Councillor Jennings? Councillor Christians?
Look, we discussed this last week or the week before at the policy meeting. I still think we need costings. I think this charity is a fantastic charity. It provides free and professional and safe flight and ground transport services to sick children. Help them out every day of the week. But I just want to bring up that I think we need costings, and we need to be, all over that. We've discussed it a couple of times now, and then I find, that we don't have costings tonight. Just a question to the Director of Finances. Have we followed it up since this report was created in regards to the costings that's mentioned here?
Through Mr Mayor, as disclosed in the report, we did send a letter off to the applicant seeking that information. At this point in time, no information has been provided.
Any other discussion? You want to write a reply? I'll put the motion, put the amendment. Those in favour? Yeah, I'd like to read.
Mr Mayor, I take that the motion as moved is that council provide financial assistance to the 2020 Tractathon as follows. 1, venue hire, $1,391. 2, lighting hire at $27 per hour. And 2, funding to be provided from the Bathurst Sports Ground maintenance budget.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now we go to Director Engineering Services report, design the alley Lamberton Park. Move in a second. Move Councillor North, Councillor Jennings.
Through Mr Mayor, there are 2 councillors who are declaring an interest in this matter, so they should declare that before there's any moving or second.
Okay then.
I'll move non-pecuniary interest as my son plays for a rival football club and my wife is on a committee doing their child protection work.
Also declaring a non-pecuniary interest, my son is treasurer of one of the football clubs who's would be one of the co-users of the facility, and accordingly I'll be leaving the room.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Jennings?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd actually like to move an amendment that we, in essence, do approve the concept design, but to split off the issue of the management model for further or future consideration, subject of a working party.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Rudge? Any discussion? Councillor Jennings?
Yeah, happy to explain there. I think a great job has been done putting the design, concept design together. I won't go into the details of that. Really what concerned me, I guess, was that this far out, for a council to be ruling things out, on page 35, the last dot point where it says that Alec Lambton Park not be provided to one specific club for use as a home ground facility, nor have any specific lease arrangement provided to just one group. I understand the sentiment, but I don't necessarily think that we should be making those kind of limitations on this project at this stage. We're nowhere near putting a grant application in at this point, and it doesn't make business sense for this council to rule out a way of going about it. So I prefer that we put that section of it on ice and deal with it in more detail at a later date.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. I'll put the motion. Any more discussion? Is there any more discussion on the? Well, it's put a.
Through Mr Mayor, no amendment has been put because Councillor North initially indicated to move a motion, but at that stage, before it could be moved or seconded, there had to be correctly the declarations of interest. And at the end of those declarations of interest, Councillor Jennings, seconded by Councillor Rudge, moved the motion, and that's what on the table at the moment is that motion. Councillor Jennings has spoken to it. The councillors at this stage have the right to talk to that motion, and then Councillor Jennings, because it's not an amendment, it's a motion, has the right of reply at this time.
Sorry, can I just clarify what's the motion? The one that's typed, exactly as typed?
No, the motion is typed, which perhaps what Councillor North was going to move didn't get moved because of the declarations that were required. So the motion that is on the table at the moment is that Council adopt the amended concept design for the future development of Alec Lamberton Park based on the recommendations contained within the report, except for the facility management model, and 2, receive a further report on possible facility management models at a working party of the council.
That's the original motion, isn't it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is the original motion because it's the only motion. Because what the staff write is a recommendation. The staff do not write the motion.
Right. Any more discussion? If not, I'll put the motion up. Those in favour?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to clarify that one at the bottom about not being provided. Is that in or out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just make a point? You did put the motion, so therefore all debate has ceased in the matter. You need to vote on the matter and make a decision. If you're not happy with that, then you vote against the motion as tabled. If you're happy with it, you vote for it.
Right, now I'll put it there again. There's no more discussion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now we go back to the...
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, the motion has now been lost and therefore there is nothing on the table. It's open, for instance, for Councillor North or any other councillor to move a motion on this item.
Right, so would you like a right of reply?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we need is someone to move a motion, and it may be the recommendation.
Right. Councillor North, Councillor Morse.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that Council adopt the amended concept design for the future development of Alec Lamberton Park based on the recommendations contained in...
Monica, you're the second.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion has been moved by Councillor North. I understand a seconder has been Councillor Morse. If she doesn't wish to second it, she can reverse.
No, yeah,
but at this stage, the motion as typed in the report has been moved by Councillor North, and on that basis, Councillor North has the first right of speaking on the motion.
Now, would you like to do that, Councillor North? You'll have the right of reply. All right. Any other discussion from any other councillor? Councillor Jennings.
I just want to add that I think it sends a really bad message to our community, particularly the groups that have got a key interest in this. A community group and a football club have shown very clearly that they are keen as mustard to work with council, and this sends a message that this council does not support them in this project and this process. And again, as I said before, I think maybe in my professional career I've probably written grants to the tune, successful grants to the tune of about $10 million, anywhere from $1,000 grant up to $1 million grant. Putting limits on how we're going to go about funding this as a business model now, before we've actually even considered what grant we're going for, is a really foolish move, and it's simply bad business sense.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Any other discussion? If not, would you like the right of reply, Councillor North?
Thank you. Simply my train of thought on this is that we first started talking about the process of Alec Lamberton Oval becoming a community area. And the Wide Rock Progress Association a long time ago came on board in respect that when it was talked about a go-kart track, they approached and they said they would like to see a park there where people could walk their dogs around, kick a football around, throw a basketball, an entry into Bathurst. And I saw this as a community area that is open up to all groups. There was, I think we had 6 or 7 different sports express interest, different clubs, and one club without a doubt with a wonderful vision moving forward. And I've got to say, it was a wonderful document moving forward, but my vision is a community area. Now, that doesn't preclude at all at any time that decisions down the track might be that the management of this and the style of management of this may well change. We have facilities for hockey, for football, rugby league, tennis that is run by one authority, and that one group pretty much runs it 24/7, 365 days a year. This in no way I see sends a bad message or precludes anything. But the moment we started talking about this, and it all came about when the go-kart track was first thrown out there, we want a community area, a greenfield site where kids could have fun, footballs can be thrown around, barbecues could be had, dogs could have a walking area. Many, many ideas were thrown around, and that's the way I want to see this facility. And to be honest, we have Centennial Park, George Park, that would probably be, well, in my estimation, have already got documents in place that we're seeking funding for. But I don't think it'd be one councillor here that doesn't say that our focus for at least the next 4 years is going to have to be on water infrastructure and roads infrastructure for ever moving area. And where we can, we're going to need to be chasing grants for community areas. So to me, it's a community area. It doesn't preclude it moving down the path in the future. And we all know that in an ever-changing environment, especially in this council, the way we move and the way we develop and grow, the model suggested by a fellow councillor may well happen down the track. But at the moment, I see it as a community area.
Thank you, Councillor North. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 2, water security update. Could I please have a movement set? Councillor North, Councillor Hanger. Any discussion? Councillor North.
To the Director of Engineering, I know that your ear is probably sore from all the phone calls and chasing up the information. Have we got any more information as far as the fine print, if I put it that way, of how this critical act, Water Act, is going to work? And are we any closer as far as extra funding from the state government?
Through Mr Mayor, following a meeting 2 weeks ago tomorrow, we were required to follow up with further information to justify our position. A 100-page odd environmental assessment was provided last Friday to the state government, and we're pursuing a response to that for our stormwater harvesting project. And the Wimmerdale Dam Pipeline project is closely behind that, and we're actively pursuing those approvals. With regard to the funding, no further announcement has been made at this stage.
Okay, thank you. And I guess moving forward with the water security, I'd like to make sure we have this in our, whether every way the change environment, every policy meeting, every ordinary meeting to where we're at. You probably don't have to go, and if the detail hasn't changed here, but the latest detail of discussions have been had. And a couple of weeks ago, based on Councillor Fry's session, I spoke about developing a water security infrastructure, natural infrastructure type policy that looks at water harvesting in natural environments. Have we worked any further to start initiating that policy document?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no. Our actions and focus has been on our short-term critical projects at this stage, which, as you know, we're pushing very hard to get a result on. In terms of our long-term policy with regard to what you've discussed in terms of stormwater harvesting in the natural environment, no, we haven't progressed that.
Any other? Councillor Jennings?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify a little bit more, following up on the previous question, I guess, was do we have a specific figure that we're asking for left over? Is it the remainder of the round figure 20 million, or is it, I've seen other things where I believe it's sort of in the range of 10 to 15 million more. Is it a specific figure that we're asking for?
Through Mr Mayor, the initial estimates for our two projects was $20 million. Due to the changing requirement for the redesign, if you like, of the stormwater harvesting project, we'd expect that will be a greater cost. Those costs have not been finalised, but we anticipate that those figures would be an additional $10 to $15 million would be required for the remaining works to be done.
Okay, thank you. The other question is regarding the status of critical needs. It says that we are to be listed, so we're not as of this point in time. Is that right? For fast-tracking those approvals?
That's correct. Advice that we have received is that we are in the process of being listed, but it needs to be gazetted, and we haven't been gazetted on that schedule as yet.
So the key question I have for that is that holding us up in any way, shape or form? Can we do other work that we've got to do anyway in anticipation of that, or are we sitting on our hands because of this?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, we're not sitting on our hands by any means, but certainly the approval and the shortlisting of those schedules, the sooner the better, because there's the scheduling itself or listing on the schedule only indicates an approval pathway, not the approval.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more in terms of the sooner the better. And a follow-up question, is there any further advice on the prospects of getting an allocation of water from Oberon Dam?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as indicated in the report, we have made a further approach back to the state government following the recent inflows into Warragamba and the overall Sydney catchment. As yet, we have not had a reply to that.
Unfortunate and disappointing. And the last question then is, so what are now your current estimate dates for the actual switching on of Wimbendale Dam? What date do you reckon we'll actually get access to that water? And the same for the completion of the stormwater harvesting to be ready to actually capture water?
As indicated earlier, our early works for Wimbendale is anticipated to be May of this year, which is 3 megalitres a day using our existing pipeline. Our stormwater harvesting and the Wimbendale pipeline, we already are aware that we can build it within 6 months, based upon advice from contractors. For the stormwater harvesting, the Wimbendale line will be a little longer. However, we can't start work in the main until we have approvals through from the state government.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Orban.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just question for the engineer, and I think it was back about 2008 we initiated a study on the pipeline from Chifley Dam. Would that be correct? And second part of that question, has the study been completed?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes. An original feasibility study was done at that stage in 2008, which indicated a construction cost in today's dollars of about $48 million. It's still something that's on the table for consideration. It will take longer to develop and implement than our current short-term projects.
That's fine. Now, also with the, and I know these are medium to long-term projects, but they're things that should be realistically looked at to be getting on the table, is the raising again of the Chifley Dam wall. I did ask for a report earlier last year, which we got, thank you. But what I'm hearing yesterday or on the news this morning was that the New South Wales government has just put millions of dollars into an infrastructure fund for pouring out through the state for money for building infrastructure. It's a coronavirus thing to, I dare say it's for keeping things going. Is there going to be money, it might be too early, but is there going to be money available through that infrastructure projects for this sort of thing?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the guidelines for that, as far as I know, aren't out as yet, but be assured that if the money is available for these sorts of projects, we will be applying.
Thank you. And you did say that the study on the pipeline was complete, so that would be almost a shovel-ready project?
Through Mr Mayor, it was a feasibility study, and given its age at 2008 and the changing legislation since, additional work would need to be done to develop that as a viable project.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Any other discussion? Councillor Fry?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question for the Director of Engineering. Premise Consulting, one of our dozen or so consultants, called for public comment on the plans that Council currently has on the table for this current water crisis. Now, Greening Bathurst convened a panel of experts that put in a submission, it was a brief submission to Council and Premise. The question of the engineer is, to what extent would the Premise Consulting Group consider the Greening Bathurst submission, or to what level of detail would they consider it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm aware that Premise have received that submission, as Council has. Premise have been engaged for a certain task, which is a stormwater harvesting project, which you'll be aware of. The submission of Greening Bathurst made a number of mentions outside of that particular proposal. However, a response will be provided to Greening Bathurst within the appropriate timeframe.
Also, if the stormwater harvesting project did in fact become a wastewater recycling project, which is, I believe, technically possible, would we need to upgrade our existing water treatment plant? And if we did, how much wastewater would that extra treatment plant produce? In other words, if we put 10 megs through it, would that produce, say, 2 megs of wastewater in that process if we had to upgrade the water treatment plant to treat wastewater?
Through you, Mr Mayor, one such way of treating wastewater is by way of a reverse osmosis, and that typically has a 10 to 15% brine rate. So yes, there would be up to that quantity of water to treat as a byproduct, should that be the way that Council is able to determine is the best way of treating the water.
I realise that's a hypothetical, but if we get desperate, we might have to do that. So how would we dispose of that 10% or 15% of very high quality, very bad quality wastewater? How would we dispose of that if we had to do it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's certainly a detail that we need to address, and there are certainly some challenges in that area.
Yep. Councillor Christians?
Yeah, have we got any word on further funding? I know we're hoping that 10 or 15 million may come from the state government. However, with this coronavirus thing going on and other issues, they're obviously spending money elsewhere. Any idea whether that'll be a possibility anytime soon, or is that something we're still waiting on?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we're still waiting on the announcement for funding. We are actively pursuing that, but at this stage, no further word.
And if we don't get that funding from the state government, then we'll just do it off our own backs, obviously. Yes, no?
Through you, Mr Mayor, two items on that. Certainly the correspondence we've had from the state government to date is that consideration for the extra 10 million is in next year's budget, but we haven't got a commitment to it. The second thing is, if we don't get that, then yes, Council will need to look at how it funds that extra 10 to 15 million dollars. And if we don't get an advice soon, we will have a report come back to the Council, so at least an interim position is in place to allow me to sign the contracts, because you've given me the power under extenuating circumstances to sign documents, but I will need a resolution from the Council to underwrite the amount to be signed off if that should happen. Certainly conversations are still occurring with state ministers on the availability of that money.
Question?
Is their budget May when do they put their budget down?
Generally around the May period, and I've certainly have spoken and we've raised it on a number of fronts with the government about the need for them to advise us sooner rather than later, so that we can go ahead with the project. But certainly there will be, if we don't get advice soon, there'll be a report to the Council in the very near future about funding.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Now we go to Director of Cultural and Community Services report. Item number 1, Children's Services, March 2020 update. Please have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Rudge, Councillor North. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 2, Kelso Community Hub, March 2020 update. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hanger, Councillor Rudge. Any discussion? Councillor Rudge.
Sorry, you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate everybody involved in the services and programs that are operating from the hub. What also stands out to me that graffiti and vandalism has been close to nil since the capital works were completed. And I think that really should be underlined there. I've noticed that there were a few people online that felt that this may not work and things could be destroyed. And I think this really needs to be noted, that the operations and programs that are running out there are really, really needed in the community, and obviously the community value it. I'm also the services that are being carried out there. Galloping Gum Nuts, you've got the New South Wales Health, Child and Family Clinic, Health Sexual Health Clinic, Central Women's Health Clinic, Mission Australia, Wattle Tree House. I mean, there's a whole gamut of services that are being made available from the hub. And I'm also impressed to see that the Chifley Youth Mentoring Program being facilitated by the Chifley Police District during the January 2022 school holidays had over 50 young people attend the program across the 4 days. And I think that really says for itself what this hub has created for the community and how it's been very well accepted. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Hanger.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question of the Director? In the current climate of coronavirus and that sort of thing, can we have some sort of comment on how this might affect, with all these programs going on at the hub, how it might be affected out there at the community hub? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're proactively working through all of our programs, and to this end at Kelso we emailed all of the users to have a good discussion on what this means going forward, because it's important that the services are continued out there. My initial feeling is we're going to lose some, at least temporarily, on their delivery, but at the moment, the email I only sent out on Monday or Tuesday, I'm a little confused with which service I've emailed. I haven't got a confirmation on that, but we will be feeding that information to councillors and advertising who's using what very shortly.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hanger. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 3, Destination Brand Implementation and Bathurst Region Destination Management Plan, Quarterly Report, March 2020. Please have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Jennings, Councillor Rudge. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Carried. Item number 4, Bathurst Rail Museum, opening Friday the 21st of February 2020. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rudge, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? Councillor Rudge.
I noticed that one of the ladies from the public gallery, Irene, was saying how wonderful this rail museum is. The feedback that I'm seeing on social media and in all other, feedback from the community has how wonderful this museum is. I don't think I've heard anything. I know obviously there's been some situations that you've had to sort out, but you are working well towards doing that. But I just think this is just such a wonderful thing for the community, and I'd like to congratulate the community for embracing it and getting involved in it and supporting the council. I think that the Seven Sunrise team to be there at the museum on 3 occasions. The public response has been amazing, and over 1,000 visitors in the first week of operation. Has that happened before in Bathurst or anywhere that you know of in the region?
Would you like to answer that? Oh, okay. Thank you, Councillor Roach. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor
Just
Hanger.
ask a question without notice. The gala day being planned for April the 20th, considering the way things are happening at the moment. Any thoughts?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Similar answer to before, but I do know today we were having the heritage bus on rails. I've got that words wrong, but that's cancelled as of today. So the gala day is looking less gala by the minute. So we will try and claim the date next year.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
Yes, just one question. I realise that all of you directors have been extraordinarily pressured in the last few days with the coronavirus, but I just wondered if the Director of Cultural and Community Service in the next week or so will give us some indication on the opening hours, if so, of all the museums. I'm not asking for it tonight, but I'm assuming that a statement will be made in the next week or so.
Yes, we will. We'll, through the communications team, provide centralised and coordinated communication. I've got around 10 pages here across the department of around 40 projects and programs and opening hours that are all in change mode at the moment, but we haven't finalised any of that. Thanks.
Councillor North.
Yeah, just to make one comment, whosever idea it was to get Mr. Scott McGregor there, I thought when I got there, I thought this gentleman looked familiar. The job he did on the night was wonderful, and the appearance of Ben Chifley, I personally know the gentleman who played that role. They were, to me, two of the highlights. One, the museum is absolutely wonderful, but Scott McGregor, with his passion for railways and trains, I think he was talking about bringing a particular train to Bathurst and a tour in the future. But I think those two parts of it, the history of Bathurst is very unique in so many different areas, that those two gentlemen did an absolute wonderful job on the night and should be congratulated. Whosever idea it was, well done.
Thank you, Councillor North. Any more discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We go to item 9 now, reports of other committees. Policy Committee report, 4th of March. Do I have a mover? Councillor Christians, Councillor North. Is there any discussion? If not, well, would you like to comment on it?
In particular, item number 14, which is fencing of the Adventure Playground, which has been a topic of discussion. I'd just like to make it very clear that I'm not a parent. I don't go down to the Adventure Playground all that often myself. These aren't my personal concerns. I do not have a dog in this fight. However, when I'm approached by people in the community that do have concerns, it is my duty as a councillor to act as a conduit, to stand here and voice those concerns on behalf of them. It's that simple. That's why we're here, okay? I'm just going to read out something, just a couple of things here. These are the type of people that I'm coming in contact with, and these are some of their concerns that I believe they have a right to be heard within this chamber. They may not have the ability to come here and speak for themselves, but I'll do it for them. And that's what I was doing 2 weeks ago at the policy meeting. I'll start with this one. I'm involved with the Corinne School, and they cannot access this wonderful resource because it is not fenced. They can't safely take our students there. All have some sort of disability that can and does affect their judgment. It is our duty of care to ensure that their safety is, it's our duty of care to ensure their safety as much as we can, but we cannot do this at the Adventure Playground. I'm a parent with a disability and 2 autistic children. I cannot run. At times I've had my littlest one run away from me towards the road. It takes just a split second for one of these children to run away. What about parents that have trouble moving? This is from a lady called Erin. I was hit by a car, and now when I run, my hip can pop out of place at the most random times. I can't run so much, so it is hard to run after my toddler when he wants to see cars or he wants to be cheeky. This is a problem near such a busy road. This is from Michelle. Carers and daycare providers cannot use the park as it fails risk assessment protocols. Parents of twins, triplets, children with disabilities cannot use the park. It has nothing to do with lazy parenting. This is from Bell. Council's own family daycare schemes don't allow children to be taken to the park whilst in their care, as they consider it unsafe, which is quite ironic. This is from Judy. I've actually changed my mind a lot over this. We are grandparents looking after small children, and more of us can't chase these little legs. This is from Trees. I will not take my grandchildren to the park if I'm alone with them. It is too hard to watch them running in all directions. Here is a scenario. This is from Beck. I have a kid with a disability and another young child. They both love the adventure playground, but we rarely go because it isn't possible to take them both by myself, which means waiting for a time when their dad can come, which happens to be on the busiest days. Leave that one there. Catherine, there are so many areas where it is impossible to supervise your children all the time, even if you're hyper vigilant. A fence will enable other people to use this area, such as childcare services and disability services. Christiane, I have 8 kids and never had an issue with the park and watching my own children. But I remember feeling like I was about to have a heart attack when I saw someone else's child run out of the toilet block and towards the road while his mother was on the toilet. It wasn't even my child, but I still felt the panic. And me being a stranger, if I had approached him, he would have ran even faster. Look, I could go on and on and on. These are genuine concerns from the ratepayer. Now, I understand that we had some advice from the person that designed it. That's fine. But we represent the ratepayer, not the person that designed this. It is an excellent facility, and for people in this community not to be able to use it is nothing short of a disgrace. I quote, Councillor Warren Orban made an excellent point earlier on tonight about bollards, because something can happen. It may not happen, but something can happen. It's harm minimisation. Now, to read the paper and to have Councillor Jennings say that I'm cheaply responding to a couple of posts. Those posts come from ratepayers. Ratepayers like this.
Excuse me, just concentrate on what you're saying.
Ratepayers like this. And to suggest that myself acting on their behalf and these people are nannies, wanting a nanny state, I think it's disgraceful.
Can I just see if there's extra time? Anyone else?
Yes, it is. Now, I want council to go back to a working party. Mr Mayor, do you need to?
Well, I need to know, Councillor North. Well, it can't be extended.
Well,
Mr Mayor, I say we are agreeing to the policy committee minutes, are we not?
Yes, but he was the mover of that, Councillor Morse, so please.
Can we discuss the issues at the policy committee?
Yes, which is fencing in the adventure playground.
That's item.
Now, I'll carry on.
No, your time is up, Councillor Christians.
We need to discuss this further. It's disgusting.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item Traffic Committee report, the 3rd of March. Could I please have a mover and a second? Councillor North, Councillor Rudge. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 10, notice of motions are nil. Item number 11, rescission motions are nil. We go to item number 12, councillors and delegate reports. We go now to the delegate reports. Item number 1, councillors' meetings with community groups and representatives on the 12th of February 2020. Could I please have a mover and a second? Councillor North, Councillor Christians. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Put the motion carried. Item number 2, the minutes of the Bathurst Regional Youth Council, the 11th of February 2020. Could I please have a mover and a second? Councillor North, Councillor Rudge. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 3, the minutes of the Bathurst Regional Community Safety Committee, the 13th of February 2020. Could I please have a mover and a second? Councillor North, Councillor Rudge. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Item number 13, resolve into confidential committee as a whole to deal with confidential reports. Councillors, could I please have a motion to go into the confidential meeting of council? Councillor Christians, Councillor North. Are there any members of the public and the press who wish to make representation to the council as to whether the matter should or should not be dealt with in confidential committee? As there is no representation, I'll now put the motion to go into confidential committee. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Mr Mayor, Council has just met in confidential session and has made the following recommendations to Council. First item concerns rural lots at the Bathurst Aerodrome, and the Council has been recommended that it approve entering into a new rural licence agreement for various lots in Part Lot 404 DP 1241250 located at the Bathurst Aerodrome for a period of 5 years as detailed in the report. The second item relates to interest on outstanding rates, assessment number 103639, and it is recommended that Council write off the accrued interest on rates and charges for assessment number 106639 under the hardship provisions of the Local Government Act 1993 as detailed in the report. The next item is request to write off loan Bathurst 75 Football Club, and the recommendation is that Council not accept the offer from the Bathurst 75 Football Club of the one-off payment as full settlement of their loan with the Council. The next item was tender for design and construction of Central Tablelands Collections Facility, and it is that Council decline to accept any of the tenders, and B, enter into negotiations with Tablelands Builders Proprietary Limited with a view to entering into a contract in relation to the design and construction of the Central Tablelands Collections Facility. C, the reasons for declining to invite fresh tenders are due to funding limitations, construction timing and project functionality, and D, the reason for determining to enter negotiations with Tablelands Builders Proprietary Limited is that they are the preferred tenderer in accordance with the selection criteria for the tendered works. And the last item was tender for design and construction of Howard's Bridge, the bridle track Juramanar, and it's that Council accepts the tender from Bridge and Marine Engineering Proprietary Limited in the amount of $789,848.40, including GST, subject to provisional items and variations.
Thank you, General Manager. So, councillors, we need to adopt the item.